Okay, guys, so let me just get these papers out of here because there's some stuff there that we shouldn't really be sharing. Give me about 2 minutes to get my power supply over here for my laptop and we'll get started. So I'm just gonna put the countdown up so I know how to edit this thing later when I know where to cut this in. Okay, guys, hey, it's Steve, just getting going here. Let me grab a couple pens so I'm ready. All right, so wanted to catch everybody up because we've had so many people joining us over the last few weeks and it's all kind of scattered. So I wanted to start with a good, roughly 1 hour presentation walking through what I am, what Gorilla is, what Wholesale Broker is, and where you guys fit in depending on what you're interested in. So the first thing that I wanted to cover is sort of me and my background. No need for a whiteboard on that. You can look me up, although a lot of my stuff is spotty because I've not been that good about social media. I just brought on 2 social media people, and I'm bringing on a web guy next week to redesign all my crap, make it all make sense. It's weird. I started out life in the television production world industry, which I actually do miss a lot, but did a lot of interactive stuff, a lot of touch screens, some of the first touch screens in the country, actually. And I bought my first building with my brother in 1997. We bought a warehouse in Boston. It was basically, I just signed and wrote a check and didn't really think much about it, but it was sort of my first foray into real estate. We refinanced that building in 07. I started buying heavily out here in Northeast PA. Heavily for me, I only had a couple $100,000, but ended up with 30 units, I think, something like that. During COVID, sold off a lot of them, made a lot more than I had invested in them, but that got kind of eaten up because COVID wasn't really a good time for everybody. Certainly not for those who got sick. Anyway, but I've been doing real estate part-time since 1997, full-time since 2008. In 09, 010, I started doing effectively what was wholesaling. I just didn't know the term for it. I thought I'd invented something. Ooh, let me lock up a property at this price and sell it at that price. I didn't know. Took some courses, learned about wholesaling, started teaching wholesaling. Deal analysis is my strength. My weakness, kind of, is in getting the deals initially from the seller, finding those sellers that want to do it. And I'm great at working with the sellers, but I hate the part of calling, getting hung up on calling, no, I'm not interested. That's the part that really, you guys will play all the parts, don't get me wrong, but that's the part that really is what this is all about. 2015, I became an agent, and I literally told my first broker, I said, don't ever expect me to sell a damn property. It's never going to happen. I'm here to get MLS access to buy property. I'm not here to do anything like become a realtor. And suddenly, first of all, I just want to verify, can you guys hear me out there? I just want to check the signal and check that it's doing its thing. So I'm just going to check the audio. Test.
I can hear you.
Okay, good, thanks. Hate to record the whole thing and nobody can hear me. By the way, use the chat room in this group if you have questions. Just pop me up a chat or a message or some such thing. Comments, I guess, is what this app calls it. These are always recorded on YouTube, and we have a playlist. And I think I gave you guys that link. And we're slowly moving our stuff over. I do have a VA working on organizing my stuff because I'm not the organizer. As a background in television production, my job is to make things happen, not worry about the paperwork. Anyway, this is entirely. Anyway, so basically, deal analysis is what I live and die at. Now, let me explain sort of what the triad, I guess, is. Is the wholesale broker is not a brokerage firm. Oh, wow, that's a lot less legible than I thought of it. I will upload pictures of this in the future. I'm moving to an electronic whiteboard solution, but right now the studio's torn apart while people run wires for me and stuff. The wholesale broker is not a brokerage firm. The wholesale broker is simply our brand name for being the back office for wholesalers and folks like you. Everyone from a bird dog that says, hey, I'm good at finding deals, but I don't have time to do anything else. Great. We'll work those for you. Or I'm a really great wholesaler, but I hate the deal analysis. I hate the back office. I hate the keeping track. I hate the legitimacy part of it. I love dealing with the people in the houses. Cool. We got your back. So the wholesale broker is sort of an umbrella entity working nationwide. We're exploring other countries like Canada and Mexico, but I think that's a couple of years away before you figure out those markets. Also, they're a lot smaller than the U.S. market. But working nationwide on helping people get their deals done. Gorilla Real Estate Gorilla is my brokerage firm. That's the licensed PA brokerage firm. And that actually will soon be will be separated into two, an NAR brokerage firm and a non-NAR. NAR being National Association of Realtors. Now, first of all, I am a National Association of Realtors member. I'm a broker. I'm a PAR member because that's my state. We are licensed only in Pennsylvania, although I can do things in almost any state through other referrals and reciprocals and so forth. But the point is that we're opening a non-NAR brokerage firm to help those people like you who want to, or of you who want to get licensed, but not be an Association of Realtors member. There are pros and cons to all of it, but the short version is getting licensed, speaking to those in Pennsylvania who want to do deals in Pennsylvania, is a low bar. It's a 75-hour course, and most educators don't keep you there 75 hours. And it is $500 or less for the course, plus or minus. I reimburse. Everything we do, I reimburse out of closings for any of your for most of your hard costs. I reimburse $500 when you do your first couple deals with us to cover your licensing fee. I reimburse $500 every couple of years for your license renewal stuff. I don't reimburse for your PAR. Well, I do reimburse for your PAR fees. And these are all things I do if you join my firm. If you go get licensed and go to another firm and want to JV with me, great, but I'm not reimbursing. Because you're not my fully, you're not fully my agent, you're share. But basically, if you don't want to join NAR, because your local board might cost you $1,600 a year, and if you're like, hey, I never want to list a property, I would advise you that may not be the best play, but If you're like, hey, I have no interest, I only want a wholesale, or you're out of state wholesaler, and you're never really going to do deals in Pennsylvania, well, then you don't need NAR because you're not going to do it. And if you're in the non-realtor brokerage firm, you can refer things, or I did this backwards. You can refer things to the licensed firm and still make good money. So the point is, getting your license opens you up in every state to the ability to get paid when something gets listed. So this is why I tell everybody, for a small fee, whatever state you're in, of getting your license and keeping your license and being with a broker, that is so worth it. And here's why. And again, I'm not a big fan of the Association of Realtors. This has nothing to do with the association. This has everything to do with what you can do with your license. When you're not licensed, even in a state that doesn't require licensing for wholesaling or does, your conversation with that seller ends if you can't come to a number that is okay for wholesale. So if you can wholesale it, I'll use a perfect example. I bought a deal last week, 2 weeks ago, I guess. I told you guys that I can list you and sell you probably 100, 120. No problem, all day long, every day. Fine. I can list you and sell you for 100, 120. I can wholesale you. I can pick you up cash, off market, direct, sign a contract today for 70. And he picked the 70. He was in a pinch. He needed it done. Whatever his internal reasons were, he picked the 70. Now, if you're not licensed, you don't have the other option. I did another one the same week where I went to them and said, I can buy you for X and I can sell you or I can list you for more than X. And they said, well, let's try the more than X. And I tell people this every day. I got a building I personally want to buy in my hometown. And I told the owner, I said, listen, you want $4.5 million for this. I can offer you $3 million for this. Let me list it for 5 and see where we end up. And if we don't, you can back off and sell it to me for 3. I'll try it. If you're not licensed, you can't have that bigger conversation. Because realtors, licensed agents, realtors, I'll use them interchangeably, but I'm always talking about licensed agents, meaning you don't have to be a realtor. Most state laws say you can't be paid by a licensee if you're not licensed. If you're a wholesaler in Florida and you're dealing with an agent in Florida who's paying you finder's fees, chances are they're breaking their law or their code of ethics with their association. Not your problem, but that's why you want to be licensed. So that you can say, if somebody wants to list a property in Kalamazoo, Washington, and I refer them to a broker out there, I can get a referral fee anywhere in the country. So by being licensed, doesn't need an association, by being licensed, this is your advantage. You're not licensed, that's fine. We can still work with you, but I'm just explaining why the $500 to get your license and the $500 to keep your license is worth it, at least worth it to consider. Now, what we do here at the Wholesale Broker and my other companies, because I'll explain that in a second, is we work with unlicensed people. We just do so at a much reduced cost, meaning profit to you. In real terms, we pay 70 to 100% per deal. Everyone says, well, wait a minute, okay, I don't want 70, I want 100. Well, that's great. We start you off at 70. Most people we start off at 75, but whatever. And it has to do with how much money you pay the company. And it has to do with your skills, your experience, which of course, the more money you pay the company, the more experience you probably have. And this is if you're licensed, or we're working in a state where you don't have to be licensed. The reason we pay this high amount is because if you are licensed or you don't need to be licensed, nobody else has to do your job for you. I don't know how else to put it that way. In Pennsylvania, if you're not licensed, and in many states, if you're not licensed, many states that have wholesale licensing, wholesale laws that require licensing. Of course, I'll wait for text now. Wholesale laws that require licensing say that only licensees can do certain things. In Pennsylvania, for things that require licensing, which in Pennsylvania for wholesaling, that's units 1, 2, 3, and 4, single, double, quad, triple. Those things you got to be a licensed agent working under a broker to wholesale. I would say some different rules, but the point is, in Pennsylvania, what the law says is if you're not licensed and you're doing something that requires license, you cannot do what's called substantive real estate activity. You, first of all, can't be paid for a transaction. I have to pay you a different way. And second of all, you can't do substantive real estate activity. You can't negotiate with sellers. You can't negotiate with buyers. You can't show property. You can't talk details. You can't market property. You can do other things. So I have to pay you less. If you're doing wholesaling in Pennsylvania and you're not licensed, I have to pay you a lot less. Because under the 75 rule, you're doing pretty much a lot of the work, most of the work. That's why you get most of the money, okay? But if you're not doing that, I gotta pay you like half, 45, 55%. And I pay that 3 different levels. I pay that if you're not licensed in a deal that has to be licensed, 25%. You give me a name, a phone number, and a warm connection to the seller. You don't just hand me a list and say, hey, here's a list of people. Go ahead and call them and see what happens. I'll get 25%. No. I can buy a list too. Okay. I can call a list too. That doesn't get me anywhere. It might give you 5 or 10%, but I'm not going to give you a lot. Just checking to make sure there's no disasters for the wife here. Hang on a second. She knew I was doing the class. Yeah, so all right. So I can pay you 25% for a warm transfer. I can pay you 45 to 50% if you're fully involved in the deal. Meaning you do whatever I tell you, whatever I'm able to allow to tell you in the deal. And so what that means is you bring me a deal in Pennsylvania. That's something that requires licensing. And you're not licensed. Now, on this equation here, this has to be a double close. And you're getting that share of what we cash as a final check. For example, off the title table comes $10,000. That's what we cash. But we had to pay a third-party broker, whatever, 10% to handle something on an out-of-state deal. Or we had these hard costs that went along with that transaction. Okay. Maybe that becomes $9,000, whatever. That's the number we're both sharing. You're taking 45 or 50, I'm taking the balance, whatever. You've stayed in the deal and done the things I've instructed you to do and shown you how to do. You pulled comps, you've verified stuff. Maybe you go to the property. You can go to the property. You just can't talk to people about how many bedrooms it is. In Pennsylvania, the law is a little vague, but what it really means is you can be showing a house. If I tell you, hey, go open the door for this open house, you open the door, you don't open your mouth. You can be standing in front of the 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms of the house. People say, well, how many bedrooms and bathrooms are there? And you simply stand out of the way and point. You can't answer the question. Well, how much are the taxes? You hand them a copy of the sheet. You don't say a word. If you're not licensed, you can't tell anybody anything. You can't do anything substantive. So what that means is that I have to cap what you make on a deal if you're not licensed. You're either going to make this or you're going to make that. So all of this is to say, I'm encouraging you guys to get licensed and to consider getting licensed. I don't care, do it whichever way you want. But that's the way we work. So what that means is that what we're providing for you is many things that you won't find on your own. The first thing is I tell everybody, I've got stuff on YouTube, I'm my own little YouTube university, I guess. But when I say YouTube university, I mean the concept of YouTube. And people say, oh, well, I don't need help in wholesaling. I can just go to YouTube and watch them. And yes, you can. And there are people I know who've been very, very, very successful in doing it. By just learning that way. That's great. But the reality is you don't know who's behind it. There are people who've been very successful giving Stan Merrill, Dan Graziosi, whatever, $20, $30, $50, $60, $70,000. And those guys are phenomenal and do a great job. But that's a lot of money. What we offer here is an earn while you learn program. Now I'm not going to get into the programs, that's a whole different conversation. But we're partners. If you pay us money, we're still partners and we reimburse your course fee out of our partnership. If you don't pay us money, you bring us deals, we work together. The whole thing is I don't want the course fee. That's why I don't charge a course fee for most of what we're doing here. I want the partnership. Okay, so that's what we offer here. Now, and most of you have already signed up for us to be a joint venture partner in the non-charging version. So kind of dispense with a lot of that, but that's how we do it. Now, the first thing I want to cover is what is wholesale? How does wholesale differ from everything else? So in the previous, I don't know how else to put it, in the previous model, non-double, in the standard wholesale, there's A, B, C, which is A is seller, C is buyer, and B is wholesaler. A and B, seller and wholesaler, enter into an agreement of sale. Enter into something where seller says, I'm willing to sell to wholesaler. Let's see if this color is easier to see. A little bit, okay, so we'll go this way. The seller says, I'm willing to sell my property for $10,000 to entity, company, whatever. Everything we do is under entity. By the way, working with us, you don't have to worry about LLCs. You can have one or not have one. All the contracts are us, all the signings are us, all the real risk is us. We're doing all that. You guys aren't putting your names, you're putting your names on our JV agreement, everything else is over there. And then we find, wholesaler finds, and then buyer, let's say for $20,000. So that's how that works. That's a traditional wholesale. Now, there are other versions which keep the wholesaler paid, but do this. So the title, this is an assignment. Title goes from A to C, and B gets an assignment fee. The wholesaler gets an assignment fee. That's not a double close. And in Pennsylvania, those are not going to happen for most 1 to 4 unit transactions. They can, they do, but those aren't ones I can pay you on. So when we're working together, we're going to do a double close if you're not licensed. If you're licensed, I can do these all the time. If you're not licensed, the title has to go here to here. So a double close example, just to explain the difference. To explain the difference, an assignment is really just what it sounds like. I've signed an assignment contract. So I've signed with the seller. Mr. Seller, I'm buying you for $10,000. Mr. Buyer, you're buying it for $20,000. Great. Mr. Buyer, I assign you my contract for $10,000. And then you're going to pay me an additional 10. You're going to pay 20. 10 to the seller, 10 to me. Back before the new law went into effect January 4th, that was fairly simple. Now the new law basically requires, and most title companies are requiring, that one of the parties, A or C, sign a fee agreement so that everyone knows exactly what wholesaler is making. And that is, at the end of the day, what the law is all about. Poorly written, poorly worded, poorly handled, but that's what they're doing. Clarity and transparency. Double close can hide that. I mean, I'm doing one right now. I picked the property up for $12,000. I sold it for $20,000. It's fairly standard wholesale spread. Small by even some estimations. But some versions of the reading of the law would say, well, unless everyone knows that and agrees to that, you can't do it. So what we do in those cases is we go A, B at 10 a.m. At 11 a.m., B sells to C. And that used to be, that's a double close. B owns it for some period of time before C takes it. So what that means is that it's not a double close, and that the whole reason for double closes was that A never found out what C paid, C never found out what A got, so no one really knew what I made. 6 months later, when everything's filed at the courthouse, everyone would find out, but game over at that point. There are two versions of title companies. Some title companies are still okay with this. Some title companies still require, even in this scenario, that the parties know what's being made. Okay. And again, it's all about clarity to the parties. As one of my attorneys says, sorry. Sorry, my wife was on the phone with Amazon on something. There was a dispute. Well, shouldn't really be a dispute, but whatever. And as those of you who have girlfriends or wives know, sometimes the answers are fresh. So what we do when we do a double close, what really matters to you guys is how you get paid. So whatever comes off the table between A and C, or to us, between these parts of the transaction, is what you get a share. Whether or not we have to disclose to the parties of the double close depends on what the title company says. Okay, and that's fine. I'm not looking to hide anything. People aren't okay with it, we go to the next seller. People aren't okay with it, we release the buyer. Whatever. Vice versa. We go to the next buyer, release the seller. The point is, we do everything clear and whatever so that this can be worked out. The reason the states are doing this, and this is the reason the wholesale broker, I used to call it Independent Investors Association. I had a dream of an NAR-like nonprofit organization for wholesaling, but is because not of folks like us. And I'll be straight up. If I get a whiff that anybody in this group is not acting ethically, you're no longer in this group. Okay, and if you think that what we're doing is unethical, please call us on it. Let's figure it out. Because I try very hard to be as ethical as possible. Almost every state has a seller disclosure law. Almost every wholesaler in most. Seller disclosure law is a bunch of questions. Sometimes there's checkboxes, sometimes there's not, whatever. That says, seller, tell buyer everything you know about the house. How old is the roof? How old is the furnace? Did you ever make it your primary residence? Do you know of buried chemicals? Do you know about leaks? Tell me what you know about this property. Some states have exemptions for estates, meaning probate, meaning death. Some don't. There's also EPA, federal EPA, has a lead disclosure law for anything built before 1978. I do lead disclosures on everything. I don't care when it was built. I do lead and seller disclosure. In Pennsylvania, the law for sellers is only for residential 1 through 4 properties. I don't mind everything. I just say, listen, Mr. Seller, tell us what you know. It's only fair the buyer knows everything the seller. It's not about only fair though. Both laws have huge penalties for not doing it. In the EPA version, it's do you know the presence of lead? Do you not know the presence of lead? Do you have any records? Do you have any whatever? So in the EPA version, it's that. And those fines can be $30,000, $40,000. I don't exactly know what the Pennsylvania disclosure fines are, but here's what I do. There's something in real estate called material fact. If you, wholesaler, professional, dealer, whatever, agent, whatever you want to call yourself, know something material fact, and the vagueness of material fact is something that would have changed the buyer's or seller's perception about the property and could have changed how they approach the deal and what they paid for it. You know something, you don't share it. The seller knows something, they don't share it. Good example is I was walking through a house one day and buyer said, hey, what's that white stuff around the pipes? Is that asbestos? I said, well, it's a white corrugated product around pipe. Could be asbestos. I'm not a specialist, I don't know. If you're interested, please have it checked out. Another deal, I was walking through a house and I'm with the seller, big ass crack in the foundation that looked pretty scary. Things were actually no longer flat at the top of the wall. One of them had shifted down. And I said to the seller, I said, well, that's not on your disclosure. He's like, oh, we don't want to mention that. Oh, sorry, but I have to. Like, if you won't disclose it, I have to disclose it. Because I know a material fact that foundation has settled in some way. And there are other examples, but the point is, even if the seller doesn't want to share it, if I notice it and I'm aware of it, I have to share it. Because if those things aren't shared, if your seller doesn't do a disclosure, well, they leave something out. Now, it has to be proven they left it out intentionally. Like, got a woman I'm selling a house for right now, there was a leak in the crawl space. And if she didn't mention there was some sort of an issue in the crawl space, cracked joist or something. She's 69, she's never been in a crawl space, she would not know. So, okay, gotta be something they would know about. But the point is, if you don't do a disclosure, you haven't made an effort to disclose. Therefore, when the buyer finds it out, whenever they find it out, 10 years later, 20 years later, they can come back and say, whoa, state required you make disclosure. You didn't make disclosure. Or, hey, you said you didn't know if the well water was ever poisoned or whatever. Well, here's a report from the DEP during your ownership that the DEP tested and delivered to you that there was a well water problem. You knew, you didn't disclose. Those are the kinds of dangers we don't want to be involved in. Other things, there's hundreds of stories we can look up what bad wholesalers did, but that's what drives all this. So our ethics are based in honesty to consumers. So real quick, and I got to pick up the speed here a little bit. What we're going to be doing is your job in all of this is to find a motivated seller. Now, what is a motivated seller? A motivated seller is not someone who's already on Facebook, Craigslist, Marketplace, whatever. If their deals, and if it's licensed with an agent, listed with an agent, forget it. I'm not saying we can't wholesale what's on the MLS. First of all, right now it's still a little bit of the seller's market, so we kind of can't. But second of all, we have to have room to make that happen. If you have a buyer that wants something that's listed, we can make a deal and we can share the commission with the listing agent, yada, yada. Wholesales are built off the spread between the seller number and the buyer number. That's what wholesales are built off of. That is the whole reason wholesales exist. And if you see a listing and the agent's got it listed as a number and there's a 6% commission, we would have to go to that agent, get that agent convinced to sell it for a much lower number, like 50, 60% of that number, so that we could then remarket the deal. That worked back in for on my market, 2008, 2009, 2010, when the market, up to 2000, almost up until COVID actually, but certainly till 15, 16, when there were too many buyers and not enough, there were too many sellers and not enough buyers. When I could legitimately say to a seller, hey, listen, well, that didn't help. Hey, listen, you can list it if you want. I can list it for you for this, but you're going to be on the market for a year or two because the average days on market was a year or two. Now the average days on market is a week or two, maybe a month. So there's that. So what we don't really have a lot of room with listed properties anymore. Also, there's the whole problem of license paying non-license, which we can get around to a certain extent, but still have to be double closed. If it's marketed in any way, the world's already seen it. If that guy wants $30,000 for his house and it's on Facebook Marketplace, he's already got an offer of 20 and whatever. So we have to go like way down in order to bring it back to the market at lower than it was previously advertised, because our buyers who would be interested in that property have already seen it for 30. So if we offered it 25, they're gonna be like, "Oh, that's not a bargain. I didn't want it at 30, and I would have offered 25. If I wanted it at 25. I gotta have room." So we gotta find the sellers who are not, what I like to say is not aware they wanted to sell, and that's where you guys come in. That's the whole game. So the first thing you need to do is you need to have a Facebook page, probably an Instagram and some of the other ones, but certainly need. So off of your personal Facebook, and I am the one that breaks this rule the most, and you know what? I'm okay with me breaking it because, not because I'm special, but because everyone knows that I'm connected to all these businesses, so it's a little bit more transparent. But you want a business Facebook or a Facebook page, which is all real estate all the time. And I'm trying to get back to doing it. I'm trying to get back to using my primary Facebook page for business. But once you break it, it's hard to unbreak it. The reason is you don't want birthday announcements and baby daddy stuff and family drama and girlfriend pictures and vacation pictures clogging up your feed. And frankly, for me, it's more, I'm falling in the trap of discussing politics more than I should and don't. But you want a Facebook page. You also want a phone number. You want, could be Google Voice. You want some business number. And there's two reasons for that. You want an email. You want methods of communication that are all business. Two reasons for that. One is people don't see your family chat around. Two is, what am I trying to say? The second reason is you want to be able to turn it on and off. Not turn these methods on and off, but be able to say, you know what, I'm not working today. I'm not answering my phone, my business phone. I'm answering my personal phone, my friends, but I'm not answering my personal phone. I'm not checking my business Facebook. I'm not checking my business email. I'm not doing that. Today's not about that. It's after hours. It's this. You want control of your life. Because this is all about freedom, guys. The reality is, so you want to start by having this. And you want to have methods of being out there. You want to join your business Facebook page to every real estate investor group within your target market. And there are wholesalers, and I have two of my associates who will be doing future classes with me are specialists in what I call blind virtual wholesaling. But I don't recommend it. I don't like blind virtual wholesaling. Blind virtual wholesaling is, I got a deal in Tulsa, I got a deal in Wisconsin, I got a deal in Alabama, I got a deal here, I got a deal there. The problem with that is you don't know the market. And if you don't know the market, how helpful can you be and how well can you analyze the deal? So I say pick something you know. First of all, I recommend everyone start in their local community. Start around you. Now, if we discover around you doesn't have a lot of good deals, then okay, we can talk about whatever. But the point is, pick an area. I'm in a strange area because in my neighborhood is a great market to wholesale. It's a difficult market because wholesaling is oversaturated, but it's a great market. So you want to be in all real estate groups. And these are not going to be your motivated sellers. These might be your buyers. But mostly this gives you credibility in the market that you're in these groups. And this gives you people you can bounce ideas off. This, you can understand that community. Like if you live in, I live in Kingston. I'm doing deals in Pittsburgh. So I'm in all those Facebook groups. And I'm hearing what the investors in Pittsburgh are talking about. Johnstown actually, not Pittsburgh, actually, that way. So I get to understand the market. I get to ask people, well, gee, how does it do that? You have that network. You then want to be in the what's right about Scranton, what's bad about Pittston, those community complainer groups. Get legitimacy with them as being the real estate expert. Take my content, take other people's content, and we'll talk about who the other people can be. So make sure you take good content. Talk about the market, the ups and downs. Become that resource and just generally let people know, hey, you got a real estate situation, we're here to help you. That's your whole pitch. That is 1,000% the pitch. We solve problems. For those of you old enough to remember the Joe Pesci movie, The Super from the 80s, this was basically Joe Pesci was playing Donald Trump with Daddy Trump and what used to be the slumlords. I don't know what Trump runs now, but back in the day, his dad ran slums. That was their game. And Dad said, death, divorce, destruction, that's where we make money, Joey. Whatever the hell the actor's name, the character's name was. That's kind of what wholesaling is. We're looking for people who have a reason to sell below market. We're not looking to screw people over. We're looking to solve their problems. You know, I got a guy I'm doing a deal right now that he literally does not care what she gets. So the guy, the lady actually, does not care what she gets to the product. We've dropped her price $30,000. And she's still loving the shit. She's going to bring $5,000 to the table at closing. We're making $7,000. She's bringing most of our fee out of her own pocket. And we're straight with it. Hey, listen, this is what's happening. And she's like, this thing is worth $5,000 to me to get rid of this problem. Whatever that is. We want that. We've solved their problem. Maybe they made money, maybe they lost money, whatever. We solved their problem. Got another deal in Johnstown. The lady's got an estate that sounds pretty substantial out of state. And there's this random house in Johnstown. She's like, how quick can I get rid of this thing? You know, so it's like, what? We are solving their problem. We're solving the buyer's problem of having a deal that they can make money on. That's usually who it is. We're usually not selling the end buyer. We're in the problem solving business. That problem is solved by finding the people who are motivated. One of the things I tell everybody is when I'm on the phone with the seller, listen, if you're looking for the most money possible, me or another agent, listing agent, is the way you get it. Let me put it on the market. That $3 million deal that the guy wants 4.5 for, told point blank, I said, here's my listing agreement. Let me do it. I'll list it for you. I obviously shouldn't throw pens because that's not working out very well. So what we're looking for is people who are motivated to sell. How do you find those people? You find them through generally being out in your community or your market through going. That means communities like Facebook. That means posting like, hey, we buy houses here, cash, no stress, whatever. We can give you lots of examples of that. Online banner ads, I call it. You can pay for Facebook posting. You can pay for Google posting. Blah, 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 blah. We can give you or you can buy dialing lists and dial in direct mail. I'm doing 10,000 postcards next week, something like that. Well, however many, I can't remember. But the point is you can do direct mail. You can do bandit signs. I got hundreds of bandit signs. I got postcards out the wazoo. I can mail you, and you can put labels on with addresses and stamps and send them. We've got hundreds of options. I'm just checking because I just noticed my little camera light turned color on there. Wow. So you can do that. You can do calling, direct mail, postcards, bandit signs. We'll walk you through all of that. And no, I'm not selling a course here, guys. In case you're coming in the middle, I have paid courses, but I'm not here selling them. I'm telling you functionally, you're part of my team now. My hope for you, my goal for you is to bring deals in to the system that will make us all money. And I'm pulling up the wholesalebroker.com right now, and I'm going to show it to you guys if I can navigate this around well enough. share screen, entire screen, this, share. We come over to wholesalebroker.com. Is that where's wholesale broker? There it is. All right, so on the wholesalebroker.com, always this link, your live webinars, is where you guys are. So it's always there. Recorded videos, submit a deal to us. And slowly, my VA did not get to it this week, but hopefully she will. All of your names are going to be added here this coming week. So don't worry, we're getting everybody on here. Please, if you don't see yourself, message me so we make sure everyone gets in there. She's good, but we've got a little bit of spotty issues lately, I think, in the family. So on this link here, on this page here, you will fill in all your contact info. If your name is not here, you check off other, and you fill that in. You then describe the deal. By the way, up here, where is the deal? What is your license status? Are you licensed? Meaning real estate license. Hopefully you have a driver's license, but that's not relevant to this conversation. What is your commission request? Now this is really going to be, we're going to decide this, but we just want to make sure what's in your head and put it on the same page. And I got to add the 25% one here. Just so you're saying, hey, I think I want 80%. I said, well, that's great, but you're not licensed in PA, and it's a PA license required deal. Hey, I'm just gonna be straight up with you. I can run this deal, but I can't give you what you think. I want to make sure we're always on the same page. You are going to describe everything you know about the property here. So that's what all of this is about. And this form is going to grow. The VA this week is going to add all of our other questions. They're not all required. So don't feel like, oh my God, they don't know all these answers. No. The point is you're here and you're filling this in. When you, and this could be, this will be not, this is a warm lead. Let me put, I don't know how to put it. I don't want, gee, I bought a mailing list, so I'm going to put everything in this form. No. This is, gee, I had a conversation with this person, or this person expressed interest in doing a sale. Or somehow I know this person wants to have that conversation. That's what this is. Okay, that's what this form is about. Then you will be given, probably by the end of this week, a login to Go High Level. It's called Osmatic. Our version is called Osmatic with Go High Level. And you'll be able to continue your conversation with the seller in there, and you want to enter the rest of the deal information in there. Understand, folks, when you're new to this, and until you're comfortable, my partner Ryan has been with me since 2020. I'd say 60% of his seller conversations, he still has me on three-way call. And listen, is that really necessary? No, he can handle seller calls. But sometimes we're already on the phone when the seller calls, or sometimes he's just a little nervous, or sometimes there's some other reason why, hey, let's just knock it out together. He's very much a together groupthink person. We actually, even after 5 years, still just split everything 50-50 because that's been our pattern. I'm open to that pattern with any. Sure, I'll take a higher percentage than you deserve to get paid. He's licensed, he's an agent, whatever. But the point is, initially, until you're ready, I give you the scripts. I give you the phone scripts. I give you the conversations. I give you the checklist of questions. But initially, until you're comfortable, you catch a phone call with the seller. Try to dial me in. 570-798-7051. Text me, call me, whatever. Try to text me when you're calling so I can be like, oh, okay, I know this call's coming now for this reason. Instead of you just calling to, ask me whatever. That way, if I know you're on the phone with the seller, I'll pretty much bail whatever I'm doing and jump over. Or use my link to my calendar and schedule a call with the seller. The point is, you don't have to be alone on these conversations. And in many cases, if you're not licensed, you shouldn't be alone in these conversations. But you're giving me a warm lead. We're going through the questions together. Now, what you're not doing is you're not following the questions on the form in the conversation. Let the conversation go. Because in these conversations, you're looking for rapport with the seller. That's more important than anything. But they want to do business with you. They want to pick you over the 40 other wholesalers that are out there begging for their deal. Now, what makes them pick us is legitimacy, number one. I've owned real estate in my own name since 1997. That's before most of you were born. Oh, I'm not really a speakerphone guy. I can tell you, people around me swearing don't tend to happen. I try not to, but whatever. Second of all, capacity. Most wholesalers go into this business. I bet most of you don't have the capacity to tomorrow buy $6 million in real estate. If I really wanted to push, I'd probably buy $8 or $9 million in real estate with leverage. I don't have the 8 or 9 liquid enough, but not that. But the point is, like, I don't care about the scale of the deal. You find me a $20 million profitable building, we can buy it. We can wholesale it. We can list it. We can also buy it. So when you're talking to the seller, you're not saying, well, seller says, well, why you? Well, I read a book and I think it's kind of fun to do wholesaling, so let's try it. You're saying, well, all that stuff is true. Plus, my partner, yada, 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 his company, yada, 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 broker, this, broker, Pennsylvania Association of Realtors, whatever. All that stuff, published in a couple magazines, whatever. We bring credibility. So you're having the conversation with the seller, you're letting the conversation go where it does. You're taking notes on this paper, Word document, whatever, and then you fold it into our system later after you hang up. I call it the doctor model. The first few calls that we're doing together, I'm talking, you're listening, taking notes. And when you're comfortable, you say, hey, Steve, I want to take share one. So you're talking and taking notes, and I'm listening and guiding you on that and kind of whatever. And eventually you're like, Steve, I got this. And if you're already a great salesperson, you don't need it on that part of it. You're collecting information. Then we walk you through the deal analysis. We show you how the deal is analyzed. Within 24 hours, hopefully less, we're coming back to the seller and saying, here you go. This is our offer to you. And we don't just say, here's a number. I say to the seller, hey, comps in the area are 100. If I listed you, I could probably sell you for 70. If I have to buy it myself to flip it, I can pay 40. And here's why, because I see 30,000 in work. We walk them through all the options. So they're going into it informed. Now, maybe we're not being that blunt. Maybe we're skipping what we could sell them for as an agent. We're at least saying, hey, you want most money? Let's be your agent. Let's hook you up with an agent. So you're going to pop this information in here, and we're going to follow the process. We're then going to, and I'm just going to, you guys have all seen PropStream, but I'm going to open it up anyway. We're going to comp it on something like a PropStream. And I don't know why I just lost PropStream here. It's weird. There it is. Anyway, so we're going to comp it and get back to them with the contract. And we'll get back to them with an offer and have a conversation, how they want to handle it. And we're going to walk you through every part of the deal from then on. And you're going to be involved in it. You're going to see it in the CRM. You're going to be copied on it. Our transaction coordinator is going to have your name, and she's going to copy you on all the emails. Our bookkeeper is going to have your name, and there's going to be a statement at the end that says, nothing is in the dark. It's not, oh, gee, I think Steve did this right. What I was communicating with my wife on is I literally opened up a new credit card, new Amazon thing. So anything I buy for this is not connected to the rest of my operation. And if you say, well, wait, how come I got billed for this product? Rare cases that would be needed, but okay, here's why. That deal needed this. I didn't need that for anything else, so that deal had to buy this, or whatever. It's more for my internal partners in the company to be able to show them. But the point is, we do everything we can above board. As soon as we're under contract with the seller, we put usually a very tiny amount, a couple $100, in escrow with a title company. That's my risk. Because you have to show consideration. And yes, in Pennsylvania, there's nothing money. But payment to seller, we did this. It's with the title company. All money is handled with the title company until the day of closing. The everything closes, it's done, it's over. Once the seller signs, we get pictures, we try to get the boots on the ground, to get the live pictures, whatever, we start marketing the deal. We send it out to our buyers list, whatever. That's another job you can do, would prefer you do, is in the markets you're working, get a list of cash buyers. That's the other reason you're in the Facebook business groups, the Facebook investor groups, is to find out who the cash buyers are and to get them on your list and to get them in our cash buyer form on the website. I won't flip over because you guys all know what a form looks like. So that's your job. Your primary job is to turn what I call the great unwashed database lists the people that, usually around this time I park my Jeep down at Lowe's with a sign on. And I just leave it there. I move around in a couple of days so they don't get pissed. But the point is, it's always there with a sign on. Because when people are screwed, I mean, people have a broken house, they go to Lowe's. They're on Lowe's, they see a "We Buy Houses" sign, they might buy it. Whatever. The point is to turn those people that don't know they want to sell into clients we're talking to, customers. Customers we're talking to. Now, real quick, clients versus customers, fiduciary responsibility. Even if you're licensed, if you're doing a wholesale transaction, if you are licensed, there's customers and clients. Clients are when they've signed an agreement for you to be their agent. Once you're their agent, you're responsible for their needs before your own. Anyone who's doing a wholesale transaction with us, our documents with them say, we're not your agent. We are licensed agents, but we're not your agent. We're working for our own benefit. That's the difference. Customer, we're working for our own benefit, but we're being honest and fair to them. Client, we're working on their behalf. Listing, we're working on their behalf. Wholesale, we're working on our behalf, but we happen to be licensed. So that's kind of the dichotomy that we have to dance. And that's fine, we can do that. So once that deal is in the pipeline, even if that seller doesn't take action, the CRM, the software behind that form, is sending out messages every couple days, every week, it's got a schedule. We're still playing with that schedule, always playing with it. But that's staying visible. The minute we get them engaged, you or I are going to put them in a different part of the CRM so it communicates with them differently. Not sending the "Hi, please sell to us," because then we look stupid if they've already signed a contract. And then we're going to collect the information, we're going to market the deals to our buyers, to our this, to our that, and we're going to get it out there. And we're going to be handling all of the legal stuff behind there. And whatever your role is, whatever your percentage seat is, whether you're licensed or you're not licensed, you will get to see the whole process. Even if you're not licensed and you throw a deal over the wall, you'll have access to the CRM on that deal, and only on that deal. Your only access is to deals that you're involved with, that you send in. So even if you're not licensed, you're going to get to see all the things that the licensed people are doing. Maybe not all of them, but you'll be able to watch the process. None of this is in the dark. I am setting this up to be as little in the dark as possible. Does anybody have any questions? I know there's a chat button here. I'm looking for it.
No, that was good.
All right.
What other resources should we have other than Facebook and Google Voice?
Okay, so basically, all right. So you're setting up your Facebook, Google Voice, and email. I'm going to, I'll leave that up for a real quick second later. Let me open up a different window here. So you guys have access to all of our tools and all of our capabilities, which, and I'll show anybody that asks. I'm not hiding anything, but there's a lot of different resources here that we have access to. Website developers, we have marketing tools, we have calculators, we have spreadsheets. By the way, in a whole different video, probably every Wednesday, by the way, at 11:30 Eastern, we're on doing about a half hour, 45 minutes of specific topic talks. And I don't usually talk about the big spreadsheet until a couple weeks down, but next Saturday or Sunday, I have to look at my daughter's field hockey schedule, but sometime next weekend I'll do another hour, because the spreadsheet, the calculation spreadsheet will make your head explode. But we have a lot of tools that we paid for. So before you go out and say, hey, I want to buy a social media posting software, I want to buy a video editing software, I want to buy a whatever, talk to me. Before going out and buying data, yes, but also even talking to me about that, because sometimes we might already have some data we can feed you with. I don't mind if you don't have the money to buy. You want to buy data, you want to make phone calls, but you haven't got the money for it. Great, I'll buy it, and we'll just take it off your commission when a deal happens. Fine, or maybe we won't. Depends. We also have, and I recommend. Oh yeah, I forgot to, and I did not hook up my phone to be able to show my screen. But there's softwares that you should have on your phone, what I call driving for dollars. And there is a deal machine software that calls itself driving for dollars. I don't know if I just even put that what I'm pointing out on the screen. Of course I did. Let me pull that up on the screen. So here is the sheet of all the softwares that we have access to, and I'll forward this out to you later. Just chat somebody text message to remind me of that later. But basically, we have a lot of software. Before you buy software, talk to us. Deal Machine is an app like a now. So on software that you may or may not need. Unless you're going to make it at our, by the way, we can get you a phone number within the CRM and you can dial from your phone through our phone numbers. That's not for large volumes of call. That, if you make more than 75 calls a day, I think is on it, you get that number gets flagged as being a bad number. So if you're going to be calling hundreds of people, use your own phone number, use your dialing your professional, either Google Voice or whatever number, or we talk about getting a dialer like a Mojo or whatever. And we can have that. That's a whole specific conversation. The dialers are a little bit of a question mark. I not have the greatest luck because the dialer numbers, first of all, dialers are a couple $100 a month. So they're a pretty big commitment for you guys to make. And they're really for volume dialing. And a very large, very, very successful wholesaler that I'm friends with, he doesn't like multi-line dialers and no longer uses them because he said one of his problems is it dials 4 people at once. Well, 2 of them answer. One of them is going to get pissed because you can only physically take one of the calls. He likes manual dialing, power dialing maybe, but single line. So think about that before you go invest in a dialer. The software I do think you need something like, and there's hundreds of brands, Acres, ONX Hunt, Regrid, REGRID, ONX HUNT, like on this X we hunt. These are not always real estate softwares. ONX Hunt is a hunting software. I think Regrid might be some sort of an excavator software. The point is, you pull up to a property, you touch the screen, and it says, here's the plot of the property you're standing on. It also says, here's the name and tax mailing address of the owner. You don't care the property address. I mean, you do care the property address, you want that too. But the tax mailing address is where the owner lives, or is collecting their data, their mail. So when you're going to skip tracer, you want the owner's name and you want the tax mailing address. When you want to mail a postcard, you don't want to mail it to the tenant or the vacant property. You want to mail it to the tax address. We have a guy for a couple bucks who will, so you can skip trace for 15, 25 cents, whatever we services for that in volume. Here's my list. Send me back a skip trace. This guy, $1 or $2 on a single. Hey, listen, Alex, here's an address. Boom, do it, done. So we have one off. So you pull up on a dilapidated property, push the button. That's the owner's name and mailing address. Boom. You contact them, look up their phone number. You can use public services like White Pages or whatever. I have a software called Forewarn that you can also use and give you similar information for free. I already paid for the software, so I'll share my access there. So we can help you skip trace, but if you want to have Nick skip trace it, Nick or Alex, I forget. We have that. So but you want something like a Regrid, Acres, ONX on your phone. The other reason you want that is because I was looking at a deal years ago, and I mean, of course, I say nice house, but it was a crappy house. But you want the house that's the worst house in the neighborhood. You don't want the best house in a crappy neighborhood. You don't even really want the nice. I mean, we'll take anything we can make money on, but the nice house in a dangerous neighborhood. We let 3 deals go today or yesterday because when we finally get out to the property, we discovered there was something seriously wrong that made the deal impossible to make. The guy's like, I need 50 grand, and actually one guy only needed 15 grand, but there just was nothing left. The house was falling over. There was nothing. It was dead. But I was at this house one time, walked through it, loved it. Backyard looked enormous. Big open field behind it. Well, all set to make an offer. I pulled out my app. The property line was 6 inches or whatever, tiny amount behind the house. So none of what I was seeing for backyard was the yard. And I looked at the front yard. Oh, I got the driveway, but the grass in front of the house doesn't belong to the house. It belongs to the neighbor. So the house is the house and a driveway, and that's it. And that obviously brings your value way down. So you want an app like that. Also within PropStream, and we can give you access to our PropStream if you want. You can do virtual driving for dollars, literally satellite flyovers of neighborhoods, and you're looking for overgrowth, you're looking for this, and then you skip trace those properties and yeah. So there's lots of ways to generate leads. There's lots of tools and capabilities that will work for you. Any other questions?
Yeah, you said you got access to PropStream. We can get in there.
Yep. I can give you a login for PropStream, and that's a whole bunch of other software that shows you on that thing.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Yeah. So just put me a text message and remind me, because obviously I'm not really taking notes here, but I will try to remember.
Okay.
The one thing, so PropStream, we're using PropStream for data runs hot and cold, and I'm never sure if it's our calling people or if it's the fact that everyone, PropStream is the number one source and everyone uses it. The reality is, let's face it, where PropStream is getting its data from is county records and a little bit from MLS records. They kind of have an MLS. It's kind of like Zillow, like they kind of are MLS, they kind of not. By the way, when valuing property, do not use the Zestimate. I never want to hear from your mouth, Zillow, Zestimate says. The reality is, Zestimate is an algorithm that doesn't know how to discern very well. Zillow got into the we buy houses market for about 6 months, meaning they were actually buying houses, and they were relying on the Zestimate. They get out of the housing market, buying housing market very quickly. They're a great data company. They're a great provider in the industry of what they're doing, but the Zestimate's not the way to do it. If you're using Zillow, and I'm just gonna do a quick pull up to show you if you don't have anything else. If you're using Zillow, where is that? That's there. Okay. So if you're using Zillow, the Zestimate of 165. Now this happens to be one of my houses. I know what it is. It's a 2-bedroom. It's a 3-bedroom up, 3-bedroom down. We call it a 2-bedroom. My wife hates the 3rd bedroom and does not feel it's truly a bedroom, even though it's enormous. It's a funny window, or whatever. But whatever. It's either a double 2. It's either a 2 and a 3 or a 3 and a 3. Either way, I could sell that thing tomorrow for 2 and a quarter, and probably in about 5 minutes I can have that thing sold for 2 and a quarter. And Zillow is always off. You never know which way it's off. So what you do is you click behind it and you use these drop downs here. We care mostly about sold. If there are not solds in the neighborhood, you care, I guess, about not solds. But remember, listed, pending, contingent, all those things are locked by the board of realtors, if that's where the data is coming from, at the listed price. Even as a realtor, when I log into the realtor system, the MLS, I don't see the sold price until it's sold. Until then, I see, oh, it's pending at, they asked $359,000, pending at $359,000. I don't see that it was actually sold at $170,000 until the thing's closed in the system. So you want sold whenever possible. Active and pending will tell you what they're hoping they'll sell for. But sold is really your right answer. And you can play with the other drop downs. You can play with price range and bedroom. Home type is a great one to play with. Make sure you're selecting that right. And looking at where the dots are, where you're looking. And then just literally look. And there's 2 things you're looking for. And believe me, we will walk through this with you. But you're looking for, what are things selling for that look like the customer's house right now? And what are things sell for that look like the customer's house when someone dips it in whatever is gold for that neighborhood? We say dipped in gold all the time, but the dipped in gold for Knoxon, Pennsylvania, which is probably where they invented the toothbrush, because if they invented anywhere else, it'd be called the teeth brush, is different than the dipped in gold for downtown Philadelphia near the high rises. So just the reality is dipped in gold depends. But you want to know those, we're going to look at those 2 numbers. So if you have to use Zillow, you actually manually look at things. Okay, that's pretty well dipped in gold. Those are gorgeous. $232,000. So that's what you look at. My house is not dipped in gold, it's dipped in maybe silver, bronze, somewhere in there. It's dipped in good enough to rent really well in that neighborhood, is what it's called. It's dipped in what tenants expect in that neighborhood. We didn't go granite, we went Formica or whatever. Same thing on Prop Street. The point is, we can supply all those data sources, but if you are going to use something commercial like Zillow, don't use this. In the spreadsheet, I mean with CRM, we have a spreadsheet in the CRM. Until you understand the CRM, you'll be working in the spreadsheet where you enter all the stuff. And I'm going to ask you in that sheet, what's the Zillow link? What's the Google link? What's the Google Maps link? What's the whatever? The point is, when I open that file, and again, you'll start with the spreadsheet and then eventually we'll train across to the CRM. But either way, you say, hey, tell me about, and when you enter something, say, hey, here's the address of the property I just entered, whatever. But I want to be able to click through and see all of it because it's going to tell me where the property is, where this is, where that is. Let me see the Zillow link, the Google Maps. We want to know everything. So when you and I are on the phone talking about comps, we got everything we're talking about. All right. Any other questions? Okay, Billy. Yeah. So the question that came in is, what are our costs and options? Meaning, what do we charge you this? Okay. So real quick, I do have training courses everywhere from $300 a year, which is our asset mastermind, up to $6,000 for a training course. All of which, if you're involved in wholesaling, I pay you back for your course fee out of any wholesale deals you do. You're not required to buy them. We're just saying that they're there. We can talk about them. They're more of a fast track way. This methodology here is you bring in a deal, we work the deal together, and you learn per deal. As an agent with Gorilla, a licensed agent with Gorilla, we have 90%. I don't think we have anybody doing the paid version. The unpaid version is you get 70 to 75%, I don't know there anymore, of wholesale deals, and you up to 100. This is based on a calendar year, number of sales during calendar year. Every calendar year it resets down. Although your experience raises you. Like you come in at 70%, and your experience brings you up to 85 or 90. And then after a certain amount of money made, raises you to 100. You get a little more in license deals because there's less risk on the brokerage. One of the things PA does in the SB 1173 law is say that the seller has the right to change their mind for any reason. Actually, both consumers, I was corrected on that last night, both consumers have the right to change their mind any reason within 30 days up until the day of closing. And we're on the hook for the expense. So if I'm paying you 90% on the MLS listed properties or the normal listed properties, I'm paying you 85% on the unlisted properties, the wholesale properties. And you cap out at 100%. We also pay if you bring someone in the group, and this is whether or not you're licensed. Bill, if you introduce me to Jane, when she comes on board, you make a piece of our profit on Jane every time she closes a deal. I pay Jane 85%. I pay you 5. I still make 10. Fine. That's unlisted stuff. Unlisted stuff to come up. But the point is, we don't charge a monthly anything. Email's free, CRM's free, internet's free, classes are free, everything's free. If you're someone doing deals at a higher volume, or for whatever reason you prefer this model, I do have models where my agents and my wholesale team is basically exempt from paying percentage based. You pay me $500. You pay me a certain amount per month. It stacks from 100 up to 500, and then you pay 700 per deal as they close, and that's it. So if you're on the 500 plan and you pay 700 per deal, that deal was cost you $1,200, and you've made the $24,000, whatever the rest of the profits was. Now again, I got to caveat that if we're doing a licensed deal in a licensed state, that may change. What I can pay you changes if I have to involve a licensed agent to do the work. But if you're licensed or whatever, we do have that deal where you can pretty much buy yourself out of the commission. Really, my game here is very simple, guys. When I started all this, my model was 90-10. If you're an experienced agent coming on my brokerage firm before wholesaling was a licensed activity, you take 90, I take 10. If you bring someone in, they make 85, you make 5, I make 10. My model here, and because of that, we do charge back for the required transaction coordinator. We charge, I think it's $250 for that at closing. We charge back for certain things. We have these other things available. We have VAs, we have phone people, we have this, or you can get your own. The point is, I want to put the most money in the agent's pocket, in your pocket, because my goal here is to be the guy behind the scenes helping you get deals. Any other questions, guys? No? All right. So basically, so again, every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. If that doesn't work for you, let me know. We'll try to push it around, but most of our people are East Coast. And also, if you know anybody who's serious and ethical and wants to be in the game, let us know, especially if they're licensed, especially if they're a professional salesperson or in some other field where they kind of can hit the ground running. Because one of the biggest challenges, and I want to be straight up with everybody on this call, one of the biggest challenges is, how do I say this? The biggest drop off in real estate is when people don't get deals fast enough. They get frustrated and walk. Okay. And that's really the hardest part of math. The math very often is out of every 25 conversations, you get 3 signings and 1 closing. So, and that math changes, depends on where you're marketing and But it might take 75 phone calls, hopefully not to get that one. It might not take 75 to get. You might not get 25 out of 75. You might get 25 out of 250. What I'm saying is there's a lot of churn to get to those motivated sellers, to find out who's a motivated seller, and to get them to choose us over a different wholesale provider. And at the end of the day, the biggest conversation when talking to a seller is, listen, and we do this every freaking day. I had a wholesaler offer me $65,000. Well, ma'am, I can offer you 25. What do you mean 25? Well, give me 3 minutes, I'll explain. First of all, where were they from? Ohio somewhere. Okay, well, California. Okay, well, what the hell does California know about a suburb of State College or Altoona, Pennsylvania? Could they even freaking find you on a map? Second, they're going to tell you, most wholesalers are going to tell you whatever it takes, and I've heard this from wholesalers, and I've reported them to the state way before the law was even a thing, anything to make the deal. Literally, they're willing to lie to get the contract. And that contract is going to tie people up for 90 days, for 60 to 90 days. Our contract ties them up for 4 weeks. 4 weeks, I give you a thumbs up, thumbs down. If I can't find a solution for you in 4 weeks, you should go find something else. And very often within 2 weeks, we're telling them thumbs up or thumbs down. And we're coming back from the facts. So you're saying, listen, we're local. To whatever market you're in, we know that market. We prove our credibility there. We're honest. We will show you the comps of what's selling in the neighborhood if you want to see. Okay, so we're out there proving our credibility, but there are uncredible companies or less credible companies than newbies, and that's who we're competing with. So don't think this is I pick up the phone, I find a seller. Hopefully you do, but I'm saying don't get discouraged if you don't. Also, it takes a while to find what marketing method works for you. Meaning, I don't like cold calls. I hate cold calls. Marketing method works for me, honestly, is guys like you, people like you. My partner, Ryan, is probably 60%, finding 60 to 80% of the deals that we do get. Because I'm just not, I don't want to be out there knocking on doors. That's not what I want to do. You know, my friend Martin, he has a very good business, which he does a lot. He's very, very large wholesaler. His business is very heavily based on bandit signs. I'll give you bandit signs, I can find you. I personally don't like going over there and mailing crap on posts. By the way, they're called bandit signs, and this is where your fake phone number comes in. Because they're not legal. You're putting your sign on something you don't own with no permission. So you won't be able to bail on that number. That's the reason we're having, the other reason we're having a fake number. I actually have 2. I have one that goes on my signs and one that I will never give up and I will never use for my signs. So you're going to need to find which niche works for you. And let me get my infinite feedback loop off the screen here. Like I said, they haven't got the TVs up there, so I can't see what you guys are seeing all the time. The last thing is that Don't get discouraged and don't feel like this isn't working. It does work. Like they say in AA, it works if you work. There's always deals out there. Now, the really last thing I want to cover, and then we all got places to be, I told you to be only an hour and a little over, is we are open to deals of any size, any type, minorly open to buying businesses as well. If you find a car wash, laundromat, self-storage facility, mobile home park, or deal that doesn't include the actual dirt, self-storage mobile home parks usually do, those are bad examples, car wash, laundromat, stuff like that, we can have those conversations with the whole different little fish. But you can wholesale anything, okay? You bring me a car to wholesale, like, the Johnstown deal that we're just about to sign, to bring it to the state attorney to approve it. There's a 57 DeSoto behind a concrete wall in the basement of this house. And I said to the lady, I said, well, I got a few problems. I said, first of all, I have more freedom of cars. 57 DeSoto sounds like it's worth a lot, but who knows? It's locked behind a basement wall. I can't value that for you. We value, like I said, the car is coming with the house. That's our deal. But I'll take a self-storage facility. I'll take empty land. I have an AI tool to help us find empty land that I can also share with you guys. It'll be in the system later. It'll be in the system next week. I gotta learn first. I just got land. Mobile home parks, self-storage facilities, mom and pop motels is a great model. Mom and pop anything is a great model because you got that baby boomer who's aging out of the logic, and their kids are like, well, you know, Dad's motel sent me to Yale, and I'm now a doctor, and how do I care about that motel? Whatever. Kids don't want their parents' business. It's pretty much tradition. My daughter certainly made that clear. Strip malls, strip clubs. It doesn't matter. Airports. The other thing is, I want to warn you guys, daisy chains are death. A daisy chain is, and I fell down this rabbit hole for a good 6 months. I mean, looking back at my life, I see a lot of rabbit holes I fell down and whatever. But
make sure they're not wholesalers, basically.
Make sure they're not wholesalers or, you know, whatever. Basically, somebody came to me and said, I actually found a buyer for the JFK Hilton. Somebody had the JFK Hilton on contract, yada, yada, yada. They found me. I found the buyer. I'm in the middle. And my contact, and actually I found out later, the guy that I was in contact with is also in the middle. Well, once he disappeared, I couldn't reach the guy that controlled the seller. So I had the buyer, but I was blocked from there. So unless I am direct, unless we are direct to the seller or the buyer, if some middle person reaches out to you, another wholesaler, I'll do deals with another wholesaler. Typically only one. I'll only allow one guy in the middle. But as soon as we sign our joint venture agreement, I did this on a closing a couple of years ago. Well, yeah, a couple of years ago. I picked up a property at Dublin, Scranton for $30,000. I had it sold in a week for $50,000. The guy was a wholesaler. I said, great. I said, here's my JV agreement. I need a JV because I can't market something without it. I won't market on a verbal. First of all, it's illegal in every state. Second of all, I'm not that stupid. Because all I'm doing is promoting your address, and then people are going to find you. And what I said, here's my JV agreement. Now that we're under contract, I need direct contact information for the seller and a copy of your agreement. Why? Because if you go dark or I lose track of you or something happens, I can still deliver on the deal. And that's, if the answer is I'm not comfortable with that, then okay, I'm not comfortable working with you. We get to closing, I had it at 30, I sold it for 50. We get to closing, he got it from the seller for 5. Okay, which I kind of think is borderline theft, honestly, because even then the place was worth more than 5. But he had a legitimate contract at 5, so he made a crap load more than I did. And when I found out, he's like, "You pissed?" I said, "I'm pissed." I said, "He's like, I'm sorry." I said, "I'm not pissed at you. I'm pissed I didn't get to the seller first." But the whole logic in wholesaling, the professional buyer is going to understand this. If they're happy with the price from us, it shouldn't matter what price is behind that. The law now requires disclosure, but it shouldn't matter what the price is behind it. Now, but the bottom line is we want to be in control. We want to be able to contact everyone at both ends of the triangle. And also everything on paper, nothing on verbal. Last story, and I promise I'll let you guys go. there was when I was a baby wholesaler in County Louis, I got an email from an attorney, law firm, whatever, who was the estate attorney for this particular property and saying, hey, I don't want to list it. I want to wholesale this. And I went ahead and started marketing. Stupid. Didn't have it in writing. Didn't really understand that. I had an email. All of a sudden, another lawyer emails me, a cease and desist. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to put a cactus up your butt. Like some scary, take away your license, scary stuff. And I called him up and he's like, well, what right do you have to be promoting this property? And I said, well, I have this. And I sent him the email from the other attorney. He's like, oh, well, you still shouldn't because you don't have a contract. I said, okay, you know what? And immediately I took everything down. And I'm like, and I call him up, and he's like, all right, well, it turns out that guy's my partner. He had no right to do this. He's the other attorney on this estate. He had no right to do this. We're not going to work with anybody in this capacity, yada, yada, whatever. I lost the opportunity, but because I had the email, I at least had justification. I hadn't done it right. I was possibly in the gray area. But the point is, unless it's signed by the title, unless we have all the paperwork from us to the title owner and signed by all the people in the middle, and I probably wouldn't do a daisy chain with the new law, but the point is, everything's got to be in writing and clear. And that's the same reason everybody on this call and on these other things has all been, that's why we do the JV agreements first. That's why everything is as visible as possible. All right, so see you all Wednesday. If you got any other questions, email them, text them, whatever. We will be setting up and in the message I sent out about this, please do join the Facebook group as well, which is our invitation. I gotta switch to private, I think. Our invitation only Facebook group. That's where we kind of have our little intranet kind of universe. All right, guys, I appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Any other last questions? All right, see you guys. Thanks.
Thanks a bunch. Take it easy.
Thank you. Bye.